Good evening, and welcome to the Municipality of Anchorage Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals meeting for February 13th, 2025. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Ellen McKay.
Here.
Dave Hale.
Here.
Andrew Romerdahl.
Here.
Brian Bennett.
Here.
Craig Bennett.
Here.
Jason Norris.
Here.
Jonathan Lang is excused. You have a quorum. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda are minutes. We have minutes for Thursday, December 12th, 2024. May I have a motion?
I'll move to
Moved
approve
by-
the minutes.
Nope, you're late. Moved by Jason Norris. Second. Second by Brian Bennett. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none. Is there any opposition? Are there any objections to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes and the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. Next item of business, our special order of business disclosures. Are there any disclosures this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have a resolution for approval, Resolution 2024-011, and the case was 2024-0091. Does anyone want to pull this from the agenda for further discussion? Okay. Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes and the consent agenda is approved by unanimous consent. Next item of business, appearance requests. We have no appearance requests, no unfinished business, nothing on the regular agenda, which brings us to public hearings. We have one case, and it is a variance case. So I am to introduce the variance and explain the procedure to be followed. The variance is case 2025-0009. Petitioner is Alan Arnold. And the procedure to be followed: after the staff presentation is completed on the public hearing item, the chair will ask for the applicant to state their case. The applicant, including all of his or her representatives, has 10 minutes for presentation and may reserve time for rebuttal at the end of the public hearing. Throughout the proceedings, the burden of proof rests upon the applicant, who must convince the board by a preponderance of evidence that the variance should be granted. A concurring vote of a majority of the fully constituted membership of the board, minus those excused by conflicts of interest, shall be required to grant a variance. For a variance to be granted, all 8 standards must be substantially met. On the conclusion of the applicant's presentation, the board members and the staff may then direct questions to the applicant through the chair. The chair will then open the hearing to public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the rules of procedure. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc., have 5 minutes, and individuals have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the board. Time is kept by the secretary. The display at the front will be green to within 1 minute of the time allowed and then turn yellow. At this time, you should begin to sum up your testimony, and at the end of the allowed time, the light will turn red and a tone will sound. An individual may have appeal rights related to any action of the Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals. The parties have 30 days from the date of mailing or other distribution of the decision to file an appeal to Superior Court. Okay, so will the staff please describe the notice given in this case?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a note for the record, Madam Chair, on page 3 of the staff report, under community comments, the date of notice shows the year 2024. This should actually be 2025. With that, on January 21st, 2025, a total of 82 public hearing notices were mailed in accordance with the procedures of AMC 2103-020H notice. As of this writing, one public comment in favor of granting the variances was received. This can be found on page 34 of your staff packet. One additional comment in favor was received after the staff report was written. This is agenda item H1 in your packet. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors did not provide comments on this case.
Are there any objections to the sufficiency of notice in this case? Seeing none, will the staff please present the case?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Alan Arnold, the owner, is requesting dimensional variances from 1 AMC 2109060, Table 2109-5, Table of Dimensional Standards, Girdwood Residential Districts, to allow the existing structure to encroach 13.8 feet and the addition to encroach 10 feet into the 20-foot front setback. Variance 2, AMC 2107020B9, Table 2107-1, to allow the existing structure and addition to encroach 25 feet or completely into the 25-foot riparian edge zone setback. And variance 3, AMC 2107020B9, Table 2107-1, to allow the lower deck to encroach 20 feet into the 25-foot streamside zone setback. In 1996, the prior owners acquired a non-conforming determination to prove that the existing structure was a legal non-conforming structure to encroach into the front setback. Plat 96-122 also eliminated the encroachments of the front right side of the structure into the 10-foot utility, anchor, electric, and telecommunications easement along the north and east property lines. At that time in 1996, the existing structure was not within the stream maintenance easement, 25 feet from the ordinary high water line. According to municipal records, the lower deck encroaching into the streamside zone setback was built in 1998 and not part of the legal non-conforming determination, and therefore not a legal non-conforming structure. The addition of an attached structure to the existing structure is an intensification of the existing nonconformity, requiring the need for a variance for both the existing structure and addition at this time. The existing structure built in 1981, the driveway and current shed are all within the riparian zone due to AO number 2018-67S1 ordinance establishing stream setbacks in 2018. The footprint of the proposed structure will replace a shed and occupy an existing gravel driveway, maintaining existing aesthetic and current usage. The addition will connect to the existing 981 square foot structure via a 72 square foot stairwell and heated 88 square foot skywalk at the second floor. The proposed developable area is 15 feet in elevation above Virgin Creek, which is in a gorge and is out of the potential flood area. The dimensional variance, if granted, will place the addition outside the 25-foot streamside zone setback, but allow it within the riparian edge zone setback. The proposed garage will have the same setback from Timberline Drive and Virgin Creek as the residence, which was built prior to the establishment of current dimensional standards. When the residence was purchased in 1996, the owner wished to have a place to view and enjoy the creek and built a deck in the 25-foot streamside zone. The owner did not know about the stream setback. The deck now has plant life growing under and around and acts as protection against erosion from foot traffic. The total area of the elevated deck within the 25-foot streamside zone is 369 square feet. In order for the Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals to approve the variances, the application must state with particularity the relief sought and must specify the facts or circumstances that are alleged to show that the application substantially meets the following 8 standards. Standard A, there exist exceptional or extraordinary physical circumstances of the subject property, including but not limited to streams, wetlands, or slope, and those circumstances are not applicable to other land in the same zoning district. Standard A is met for variance 1, 2, and 3. According to the Municipality of Anchorage maps, this parcel has a slope of 25%. This property slopes down to Virgin Creek from the front property line abutting Timberline Drive. Virgin Creek starts in the southeast corner of the property before meandering in a northwest direction, bifurcating most of this parcel. Therefore, the steep slope and stream impact are extraordinary physical circumstances to the subject property. There are other properties in proximity to this parcel that have steep slopes. However, most of the GR2 zoning district in this area of Girdwood does not have steep slopes and a creek bifurcating the parcel, thus reducing the amount of buildable area. Standard B, because of these physical circumstances, the strict application of this code creates an exceptional or undue hardship upon the property owner and would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the terms of the zoning ordinance. Standard B is met for variance 1, 2, and 3. The stream side zone setback, riparian edge zone setback, and property setbacks reduce the buildable area on this lot by almost 100%. Taking these factors into account, along with the steep slope, the impact on this parcel creates an exceptional and undue hardship upon the property owner to build in any other location on the property. Standard C, the hardship is not self-imposed and special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant, and such conditions and circumstances do not merely constitute inconvenience. Standard C is met for variance 1 and 2, but not met for 3. This property has non-conforming rights for the existing structure. This hardship is not self-imposed. This variance will memorialize the prior non-conforming rights for the original structure and allow the addition of an attached garage in the only location that is available to build on this lot. This variance for the existing structure and new addition do not merely constitute an inconvenience for the property owner. The addition of the lower deck, however, is self-imposed, and special conditions and circumstances are a result of the placement of this deck within the stream side zone setback. Standard D, the variance, if granted, will not adversely affect the use of adjacent property as permitted under this code. Standard D is met for variance 1, 2, and 3. The original structure that was built in 1981 has legal non-conforming rights for the encroachment into the front setback. The encroachment into the riparian edge zone setback was not a factor till the 2018 ordinance. The proposed garage addition to the existing structure will not create any greater encroachments into the front setback or riparian edge zone setback. The addition of a garage will not adversely affect the use of adjacent properties. To date, there have been no complaints from surrounding properties regarding the existing structure. Standard E, the variance, if granted, does not change the character of the zoning district where the property is located, is in keeping with the intent of the code, and does not permit a use not otherwise permitted in the district in which the property lies. Standard E is met for variance 1, 2, and 3. These variances do not change the character of the zoning district and do not permit a use not otherwise permitted in the GR2 zoning district. Standard F, the variance, if granted, does not adversely affect the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the municipality. Standard F is met for variance 1, 2, and 3. These encroachments within the front setback, riparian edge zone setback, and stream side zone setback have no known impacts on the health, safety, or welfare of the people of the municipality to date. Standard G, persons with disabilities are provided with access as required by the Americans with Disabilities Act and reasonable accommodations. Standard G is met for variance 1, 2, and 3. This standard is not applicable to a single-family residence. Standard H, the variance granted is the minimum variance that will make possible a reasonable use of the land. Standard H is met for variance 1 and 2, but not met for 3. This is the minimum variance that will allow the property owner to retain this structure that has existed in this location since 1981. This is also the minimum variance that will allow the addition of a garage. However, this is not the minimum variance for the deck that could be removed. Reviewing agency comments are included in attachment 3, starting on page 33 of your packet. There were no objections to the encroachment into the setbacks. Therefore, recommendations from staff. In variance 1, the department finds that all 8 standards are met for this variance. Therefore, the department recommends approval of the variance subject to conditions 1 and 2, found on page 5 of your staff packet. In variance 2, the department finds that all 8 standards are met for this variance. Therefore, the department recommends approval of the variance subject to conditions 3 and 4, found on page 6 of your staff packet. In variance 3, the department finds that standards C and H are not met, and standards A, B, D, E, F, and G are met. Therefore, the department must recommend denial of the variance. If, after a public hearing, the commission finds that all 8 standards are substantially met, then the approval should be subject to conditions 5 and 6, found on page 6 of your staff packet. I can answer any questions that the board may have, and the petitioner is in attendance.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff by the board?
I have a question. From the chair. Would you please address section E? Is in keeping with the intent of the code, which is not addressed in your response in the staff report. And I have another question later on, but that will start. That would be a start.
Through the chair, Mr. Brian Bennett. The intent of the code is to allow single-family or residential construction when a lot is platted, as shown in 1981 when this structure was originally built, zoning didn't exist, and so therefore they had non-conforming rights. By intensifying this non-conformity by adding the garage, hence they need the variance. So the intended code here is to allow construction of a single family or a residential structure on a residential lot to the best of their ability. In this case, unlike many others, lots are platted in certain circumstances to where they don't meet our setback requirements, as shown like in the 2018, adding the riparian edge zone. If this was prior to 2018, the biggest they'd be asking for a front setback encroachment. And that's the only thing they'd be asking for. The riparian edge didn't exist back then.
Right.
Does that help?
It helps.
Thank you.
I have another question. Is there a requirement on the public notice as to what is being covered by the public notice, by the actions of the public notice? I refer to page 43 of the staff report, where the first two variances are addressed, but the third variance is not addressed at all in any way.
Through the chair, Mr. Brian Bennett, we don't always write everything on the notice for public hearing. You're talking about the poster that was posted?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't always write everything exactly as it's meant to be. In fact, there's more on that than most people put on it that we usually put. Typically, it's just a dimensional variance for garage home, stream setback, that they put the address and the legal and the parcel ID number, mainly for the fact that if anybody were to drive by this and didn't get public noticed in the area, that they'd be able to go to the planning website, put in the case number, the 2025-009, and pull up the whole staff report and see everything that's being asked for.
It is a particularly specific omission, in my opinion. Based on your own analysis of the situation.
Yeah, and if you were to look at other cases, in most cases they just put dimensional variance as the case type, they put the case number, and they'll put pretty much, that the garage and the existing house, that's a front setback, a stream side setback, and a riparian edge, typically.
I agree with all that. I was just saying that the deck is a particularly specific omission.
Correct. Hence why that's why staff recommended denial of that particular item.
I didn't know if there was a specific requirement for inclusion.
No, there was not.
Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? Staff? Okay. Will the applicant or the applicant's representative please come forward? State your name and spell your last name for the record, please.
Alan Arnold, Arnold.
Thank you. Do you have any questions of staff?
Sorry, I've never done this before.
Okay.
I don't know questions. I guess I was just trying to plead my case here.
Okay, just hang. It's just part of the
Sure, gotcha. I'm sorry.
part of the hearing regulation. So, okay, then present your case.
So in reference to the deck, when I bought that house, the only flat spot in the entire property is where you park and where the garage would go. And as stated by the gentleman over here, my property drops straight down on the back of my house. I just built a deck there, connected at the top with concrete tubes down below to have a flat spot to could actually sit and have a table and a chair on my property. Nowhere else do I have that. My property goes the other side of the creek as well. So as it drops straight down the hill, I didn't have any place to where I had a flat spot where I could actually sit out and enjoy my yard. And I was 20-some years old, I guess, when I did it, and was unaware of the process to do so. At this point, if it goes away, I really don't have any place to enjoy my yard or have a flat spot to even sit a table or a chair.
Okay?
When I built it, put large concrete sonotubes in there so that I was not disrupting the ground, and have maintained the vegetation all the way around it for 30 years, I guess, or close to, and feel as if it's not done any harm or damage. And my concern is if it were to be taken out to have to disrupt the ground, that would be even worse. I really do feel that the structure is good and not disturbing the creek in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I wouldn't have done it if I did believe so. And I was very careful to hand dig holes down there to put my sonotubes in at the time, and is a vital part of enjoying my property and my house. And not sure.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am?
Is that it? Are you done?
I think so.
Okay, you have almost 8 minutes for rebuttal, should you need it.
Okay.
Are there any questions of the applicant by the board members? I guess not. Are there any questions of the applicant by the staff?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the public wishing to
Do I just turn that
testify
off?
in this case?
You can leave it on.
Yeah. Case 2025-0009. Anyone at all? Come forward.
Yes, hi, I'm Louis Kralik,
Hang on.
K-R-A-L-I-C-K.
Okay,
And,
say it again.
Say it?
Say it again, we didn't get it.
Louis Kralik, K-R-A-L-I-C-K.
Thank you.
My wife Barbara and I have a home on Timberline Drive, also abutting Virgin Creek. And I don't know if you board members are familiar with the property in the area there. It's extremely beautiful, and we enjoy the creek very much. And I think that the preservation of Mr. Arnold's deck, which has been a stable feature for 30 years and contributes to his understandable enjoyment of the property, it's a stable feature, and its removal would cause unnecessary hardship for him in his enjoyment of his property on Timberline Drive. So I would vote or propose approval of the variance granting his garage construction and maintenance of the 30-year-old deck that's a stable structure and is heavily vegetated as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any questions of Mr. Kralik by the board members? Seeing none, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does the staff have any rebuttal?
No, Madam Chair.
Does the applicant have any rebuttal or anything you would like to say? He indicates not. In that case, we'll close the public hearing and the matter rests with the board. May I have a positive motion on variance number 1, please? Moved by Mr. Craig Bennett. Would you state the motion, please?
I move in case 2025-0009 to approve a variance from AMC 21.09.060 to allow the existing structure to encroach 13.8 feet and the addition to encroach 10 feet into the 20-foot setback, subject to the conditions shown on page 5 of the staff packet, or staff report.
Seconded by Mr. Brian Bennett. Mr. Craig Bennett, will you speak to your motion, please?
Yes, thank you. I think criteria B definitely speaks to me. About 100% of the property seems to be taken up by either setbacks, stream setbacks, property setbacks, and if variances are not granted, seems like the property would not be buildable. So I urge the board to support this variance.
And the standards? You can just say you agree with staff.
Oh, I do agree with staff on all the standards.
Thank you. Mr. Brian Bennett?
I would really have nothing to add, and I would agree with the staff standards and their suggestions.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Anyone else want to weigh in? Then if we're ready for the question is on the adoption of the motion to allow an existing structure to encroach 13.8 feet and in addition to encroach 10 feet into the 20-foot setback, subject to the conditions shown on page 5 of the staff report. A yes vote will grant the variance and a no vote will deny the variance. Please vote.
Mr. Rummerdahl, how do you vote?
Yes.
Could you repeat that, please?
Yes.
Did you hear him? No, that's outside. Mr. Rummerdahl, are you on the phone?
I am. Can you not hear me?
Now I can. How do you vote, please?
Okay. Yes.
Thank you.
That's 6 votes in the affirmative, 0 votes in the negative, and the variance is granted. Moving on to variance number 2. Could I have a positive motion, please? Moved by Mr. Brian Bennett. Please state the motion.
I move that case 2025-0009 to approve the variance from AMC 21-07-020B9 to allow the existing structure in addition to the encroached 25 feet or completely into the 25-foot riparian edge zone setback, subject to the conditions shown on page 5 of the staff report.
Page 6. Page 6. Page 6
Page 6.
of the staff report.
Oh, sorry, page 6 of the staff report.
Thank you. Seconded by Mr. Norris. Mr. Brian Bennett, will you please speak to the motion?
I think that this is a motion to allow the structure to exist, satisfying some of the legal requirements against it in the past that have been brought for encroachment. So I would vote in favor of the motion.
Thank you. And anything on the conditions? On the standards?
I don't have anything to add to that. No. I think the standards should be met and the conditions should be met from page 6.
Okay. Fine. Mr. Norris?
Yeah, Chair, concur with everything that staff presented to us, and that wraps it up for me.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Anybody else? Okay. And if we're ready for the question is on the adoption of a motion to grant variance to allow the existing structure and addition to encroach 25 feet or completely into the 25-foot, excuse me, riparian edge zone setback, subject to the conditions shown on page 6. A yes vote will grant the variance and a no vote will deny the variance. Please vote.
Mr. Rummerdahl, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
There are 6 votes in the affirmative, 0 votes in the negative, and the variance is granted. Moving on to variance number 3. May I have a positive motion, please? Moved by Mr. Hale.
I move in case 2025-0009 to approve a variance from AMC 21.07.020B.9 to allow the lower deck to encroach 20 feet into the 25-foot stream side zone setback, subject to the conditions shown on page 6 of the staff report.
Thank you. And seconded by Mr. Craig Bennett. Mr. Hale, will you please speak to your motion?
Thank you, through the chair. I think the main thing that sways me on this is the lack of buildable space. It's a lot that was created a long time ago, and it's not very usable unless you do have a few variances, I think. So I also think that the deck, although it was built without a permit apparently, if the applicant had come to the board, likely that would have been approved because there's no place to build, and I think it is a reasonable right to have a flat spot on your property to be able to sit. So I agree with staff's findings, and I would say that the one thing that I would not agree with is I noted he built the deck, but the physical circumstances of the lot are not the owner's fault. And I would say that in this case, we have the opportunity to make the applicant of the property whole and allow them to build on the property in a way that they'll be able to enjoy just like their neighbors.
Thank you. Mr. Craig Bennett.
Thank you. Same condition, B, basically, the entire lot be taken up by setbacks, and the applicant being able to enjoy a deck like the typical lots in the neighborhood, so I will be supporting this.
Any other discussion?
Yes, Chair. So I would.
Mr. Norris.
Thank you. Sorry. I agree with Mr. Hale that if this had come before the board, it seems like something that would have been likely to have been approved. And also, if the outcome of a denial is that this is ripped out and all of a sudden we're exposing ground that is not exposed now, we may be causing the very thing we would be seeking to avoid. And so it seems like a reasonable outcome for all involved, and I will be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Then if we're ready for the question is on the adoption of the motion to grant a variance to allow a lower deck to encroach 20 feet into the 25-foot stream side zone setback, subject to the condition shown on page 6 of the staff report. A yes vote will grant the variance, a no vote will deny the variance. Please vote.
Mr. Romerdahl, how do you vote?
Yes.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's 5 votes in the affirmative, 1 no vote, and the motion passes. It only requires 5, and the variance is granted. Okay, that's it. It was the only case under public hearings. And moving on with the agenda, reports. Chair, I don't have a report. Secretary, we don't have any committees. Any board member comments? Okay, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Mr. Okay, we're adjourned.